How you doing, guys? So just a quick one to remind people, when you come to a class, don't put too much pressure on yourselves, okay? I see it occasionally, not too regularly, but when I do see it, it has a lasting effect, not just on everybody else, the teacher, but mainly on yourselves. So first of all, you've got to be kind to yourself. You've taken the plunge of coming into a topic where you don't really have that information. If you did, you wouldn't be coming to the class. B, you've got a wealth of experience. So I'm not saying that I have all of the answers, but I have some years in the game. So I want to, essentially download what's in my brain to you, yeah, or allow you to do that. You have to be really patient with yourself, as discussed, but you have to also accept the ethos of the classroom. So when you're in the classroom, you have to not compare yourselves to others. You have to pay real close attention to the learning outcomes, aka what it is that I'm actually trying to get you to focus on, versus recalling every exercise, because that's not practical. Yeah, there are certain elements like a shuffle, a paradiddle, a flap, a time step. Those are the things I want you to look at, not putting them together in a sequence sometimes. Yeah, when you go to classes with people, often every class you go to will be a different routine. Now, I know with me, or with say some of my colleagues, we tend to go a bit more long term and we practice bits and we keep it really slow. But what I'm saying to you is, when you're in the room, you have to bring your notepads or video recorders so that you can take down the things that actually matter or that are part of the course requirements. Okay, next very important thing, when you're doing a class, it doesn't matter, there will be a group of individuals in there with a different ability level at the current time. Okay, when you're working in a room with somebody that might be at a higher level than you, you need to treat that as a source of inspiration, not frustration. I've said this all the time. I always say this. You have to look at it objectively. Now, every class will have differentiated learning, yeah? So it'll be an orchestral setup. The most basic, more advanced as you go in increments, okay? The most basic version will be literally as simple as walking to the shops with a couple of hops and some skipping, yeah, and very basic moves. So you should not be trying to do a more advanced version if you haven't got the basic version. Okay, so the structure is what I need you to focus on. There is no excuse, because that's the first level, and the first level has no tap dancing involved. It's literally just walking, hopping, skipping, or stamping, or stuff like that, or doing a ball change. There's no tap. Yeah, so focus on the structure. So as you get more advanced in tap, you'll realize that learning sequences doesn't come from doing more intricate steps. It just comes from learning what the structure is and where your weight is. So when we talk about weight transference, like swaying from side to side, or then suspend, over, suspend, that is the only thing that you should be focusing on. Not all the shuffling and riffling, like, or riffs or flaps or whatever, paradiddles, all of this. You just don't concentrate on that. You just come back to the basics of, where is my weight? Am I on one leg? Hold that, then move. Doesn't matter if somebody else is choosing to go shuffle, shuffle, shuffle. Doesn't matter. That's what I want you to think about. So again, that's another point. What else was I trying to come across? Yeah, you have to accept that certain people work in a different way as well. But yeah, again, I'll come back to that another time. long story short though, some people learn best by listening, some people learn best by watching, some people learn better by doing. All right, so you have to sort of come into the class and realize that you need to be acquainted with your preference, yeah, and adjust your practice for yourself. Okay, some people work in a different way. All right. Another thing, what was I going to say? There was another really important one. I've said about the variations. I've said about, oh yeah, so trial and error. That is the only way that we're going to do anything of use, all right? So you do have to step into the studio with a bit of humility, all right? And humility is really the key to acquiring skills in the arts, because you have to be honest with yourself, yeah? And when you're honest with yourself, then you can start accessing expressions and stuff like that. So I know it sounds a bit, you know, wishy-washy, but it does actually have a formula. So when you're coming in, accept you know nothing. That's going to do you a lot better than thinking you're going to walk out of a studio and be Ginger Rogers after 3 lessons. It's not going to happen. Sometimes it does, but most of the time it's not going to happen. All right. So yeah, you have to come in, you have to think about what is it that you're learning? How can you be better tomorrow? Yeah. Normally the extras or the exercises that we do in class are not the focus, it's the components. So I have to tell you to come back to that, recognizing what is it that you're trying to learn. Normally that's the focus, yeah? So moving around and stuff like that is for fun, it's for fitness, it's all that sort of stuff. That's different from the mental application of acquiring the components. So do think about that, it's really important. Again, negativity with yourself. Often if it feels bad, then it looks good. And if it feels good, then it looks bad. So accept that, yeah? So if you're coming in and you know, you're one of these people that are highly anxious, you know, again, it's a valid thing. You know, people suffer from anxiety and all that kind of stuff. I'm aware of that, you know. It's about managing it, and like managing emotions and all that sort of stuff, but it can also work in your favor in certain circumstances. Like if you're never happy, you're always going to work to improve, you know, stuff like that. So I'm not saying it's a justification for you know, feeling in a state that's uncomfortable, but certain times people's personality constructs will enable them to do things in a set way compared to somebody else, okay? So if you're feeling negative about your dancing, like I always do, I always feel awful about it, I'm going to go away and work on it. Some people might feel awful and then give up, but I'm really trying to encourage people not to give up, yeah? Understand that most of the time as a dancer, if you feel like it went well, often it didn't. And if it feels like that went really badly, it's often pretty good, all right? So it works counterintuitively sometimes. You can't trust your feelings to accurately portray reality, yeah? So it's about doing, it's about accepting humility, it's about staying within the realms of your, you know, learning capacity at the time, using others as a source of inspiration, not frustration, because you have to understand that people are all different, okay? We've all got our own things to manage and navigate. What else was I going to say? Yes, that's it. So peer observation. So it doesn't matter if it's dance, doesn't matter if it's yoga, doesn't matter if it is, I don't know, martial arts. Normally what you'll see is the master. I'm not saying that I'm a master, but what I'm saying is you'll have the instructor and then you'll have a couple of students that might be model students for the purposes of peer observation exercises. Now this is not always the case. You're not going to just watch somebody that can do it correctly. You might watch people that can't do it correctly, And that's a separate peer observation exercise. But what I'm saying is, when you are doing peer observation where the teacher has to discuss how it's done, separately from them actually doing it themselves, so I can like point at somebody doing it to show how they're standing or whatever, like I'm presenting an exhibit of how the step is done correctly, then I might use a model student to demonstrate to save time. Okay, so that's really common if you go to martial arts dojos or yoga shalas or wherever. You'll have a student often demonstrating, or so that people can see how it's done, so that they can take that in, absorb it, and maybe observe it prior to trying, all that kind of stuff, for safety, for theoretical reasons, all of that kind of stuff. So it's a good thing. That's not being a teacher's pet or preferential treatment. That's actually for the system of learning. All right, so it's a prerequisite. You need to be able to see it. The teacher needs to be able to do it. Obviously, that helps. Sometimes they can't do it anymore, but they know how to because they've got a history. So under those circumstances, they might have a student show what they could used to do, but then can't do anymore. All that kind of stuff. In the same way, peer observation, when you've got students, so in my classes, there's always an open forum. So if I'm doing something, I say to people, look, stop me if it's not making sense. And then people put their hand up and they stop me, which is great, So they stop me, and then often I give people the choice to say, okay, do you mind if we have a little look and see where you're working, so that everybody else can see what the problem is, so that they can use their analytical eye to understand why it is that person's struggling, and we all solve it together. So it's a really constructive way of learning. Now, I can understand that some people might be like, oh no, I'll be too mortified. I respect that decision. Nobody's forcing anybody to do anything. However, if you do throw yourselves in and try and break the habits of a lifetime, sometimes it can really do wonders for your confidence, because these are safe spaces, inclusive spaces, accessibility, all of that sort of stuff that comes into the room. So it does help sometimes for us to look at people that are comfortable, so the teacher can do presentation purposes around the demonstration of the step. But then on the flip side, it's also really, really good to have a look and see the level of which people are working at that are potentially still struggling. And then everybody can look at that person, see what the teacher's saying, see about the dialogue, and see what words, what feedback with that individual helps them overcome that hurdle. And then other people can use that same note or set of notes for their own learning. So you don't always have to have individual feedback to get feedback, because a lot of this stuff is figuring it out as a group. So like, if you want to play it as an individual, like you need to in some respects, because you have to focus on where you are, but remember, an orchestra works together, but it's made of many different parts. So you need to stick to your part, but you also need to work within the group environment in order to access these movements, access these combinations, access the musicality. I'm just trying to get this all done as one video so that it'll be really helpful. What else was I going to say? So too hard, that's been addressed, because there's a structural element, to every single class, every single combination. And with me, like, my professional level stuff can be reduced down to walking, hopping, stamping, all right? And that is beginner, because the most beginner combinations involve no tapping, all right? So if you come into tap, and you want to do the tap moves, there's a level that's lower than just tap dancing. It's just basically walking you know, movement in space, yeah? And most people, when we start shuffling, they're shuffling or they're flapping or whatever. So yeah, don't be too hard on yourself. You have to practice, yeah? You can't come to a few sessions and hope to look like Fred Astaire, Gene Kelly, Ann Miller, Eleanor Powell. It's not going to happen, yeah? Come and have fun. See where you are. Like, when we're developing these skills as dancers, yeah, there's 3 extra senses: movement in space, like coordination, yeah, and like we've got balance and then gut instinct. So movement in space and coordination is one, sense of balance is another one, and then gut instinct's the other one. So often in the studio we're working on those 3 different senses. Okay, studies have also been shown that dancing can really help in later life with like the neurons and stuff like that. So yeah, it's very good for your health. It's also good for the soul. It's also a good activity to do because you don't need to use resources necessarily, yeah, beyond having some tap shoes. You can just put them on and get to work, you know. So it's, you know, it's a space for meditation. But again, you have to be patient with these things. Skills are required over a long period of time. And, you know, like with me, I've been showing people how to do steps for 20 years, yeah, albeit professional or not. So I've kind of seen every single type of student, in terms of like the ones that are overly negative about themselves, the ones that maybe have a little bit too much confidence, you know, all, like the whole range, all of the concerns, the worries about where people are along their journey. I've seen it, I've heard it, I've heard them all. There isn't any other problem with somebody's learning that I have not yet to hear, you know, pretty much. I mean, obviously never say never, but yeah, it's very textbook for me. It's just like, ask the question when you're in the class. Don't wait until it's over. More so along that point, if you're going to wait until it's over, send me an email and then we can get to work. Yeah, I love it. And it's like, you know, you can have feedback as well. Just let us know what the feedback is, you know. Some people on this channel, they've done some good things and said, oh, I need it slower, this is too fast. And it's like, well, yeah, that's a good feedback to know, but it's not genuinely applicable because I'm doing a demonstration, yeah, for example, or it's not the full tutorial. But letting me know what you need just helps me to get that knowledge going towards your direction so that you can take it on, assimilate it, you know, let it incubate, all that kind of stuff. And, you know, it's just about going from 0 to 1 with the trial and error method. Then once you get to 1, go to 2. Maybe then you test yourself, go back to 0 and go to 1 to 2 and see if you can remember both things. You might not be able to. That's the challenge. But if you practice these individual components, often that's what the course material is in its entirety. The rest is just trying to, you know, bring it out in different ways and testing yourself and having a bit of fun. It's not that serious, guys. Hope that helped. Anyway, any questions, let me know. Peace.